Warning, tonight's episode of the Mike Cook Guys podcast is heavily sexually explicit. So, there will be age restrictions on YouTube, and there will be certain restrictions on Facebook. But, for some reason, if you end up watching it and you get offended, it's not like we didn't warn you. It's not like I didn't warn you. It's not like the producers on my podcast didn't warn you. Now, moving on. Welcome to the Mike Cook Guys podcast, episode 3 in season 2, the Sukebe edition. Now, for those who don't know, Sukebe is a Japanese term for pervert or feeling perverted. It can be used for various reasons. In this case, it's kind of obvious. Now, I gave a heads up on Facebook. I was going to throw all my dirty laundry out about everybody. Now, mind you, a certain ex is mentioned a lot because, let's face it, the majority of my sexual peak was in a relationship with my ex, the Japanese woman whose name I won't mention, but it starts with an A and ends with an O. I think most of y'all who listen get the point. Anywho, starting off, I'd say let's start from the beginning of most hilarious moments, because mind you, not everything that is going to be mentioned on this podcast is just, the heavy sexual moments. We're also going to mention the most funniest moments and the most embarrassing moments. And I think what takes the cake for embarrassing moments, I was only 19 years old. I was working under the table at a strip club in Hardyville. And there was a female that was working there. Italian lady with a nice tan, thick body. Knowing her, she probably had a kid. I don't know. But her car broke down and she needed a ride. She lived all the way in Hinesville. What the hell was I thinking? But she said she was going to give gas money, which was cool because at the time, I was just driving a 1989 Grand Marquis. And one thing I'm starting to learn, Mercury's break down after 10, 20 years. So, I thought it was just hilarious. So, went to her house. She wanted to take a shower, so she's like, just wait, I'll give you your gas money, and who knows, maybe more than that. And I'm being 19, I'm being ignorant as hell. I'm thinking a free meal. So, as I'm waiting, she ended up coming out in this nice, hot, nightgown type outfit. And I mean, her body smelled so good. She felt so warm. She took me by the hand and she was all like, would you like to come to the bedroom with me? Now, the average guy's reaction would have been like, hell yeah, baby. Let's do this. Not me. My reaction was pretty much, okay, sure. Like some punk ass bitch. So then, while we were start kissing, making out, I still had my shirt on, but I ended up pulling my pants down. And not too long, insertion happened. Not even 3 pumps because it was that good. As soon as number 4 happened, I pulled out and it was I was shooting out like a fire hydrant, fire hose. Like literally. It was like, I was like, oh my God. And she's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And she's like, "It's okay. It's alright, Mike." And I'm like, "No, ma'am, you don't understand. I'm really sorry." And she's like, "It's alright." She's like, "It's probably your first time with an older woman." And I'm like, "Actually, ma'am, it is my first time." What the hell was I thinking at the time? I called her ma'am. Like, literally, ma'am. I probably wasn't thinking at all because I was that nervous and embarrassed. So then, that's one moment. Another moment was when I was working at Rent-A-Center. There was a female I knew that worked at a certain dry cleaners whose name I'm not going to mention, but she's also Filipino with a big old truck booty. And I ain't saying truck booty like it was that big, but it was pretty thick for someone who was Asian. And I mean, every time she would walk, it would like have a jiggle to it, like a shake and a jiggle. And I mean, it looked so good because she was pretty much wearing thongs all the time. So it was looking nice. And we would hang out and always have drinks. And at one point, she almost turned me to a potential smoker because how she was acting, she was stressing me the hell out. I mean, never have I seen someone like that do some crazy shit. The shit that she was doing was crazy. So, one night we were drinking and we were like heavy. We had like a big bottle of Grey Goose. So, you know, I used to always tell her how she had a nice booty. And we're taking a shower together. So, I'm doing it doggy style from behind, the standing version. And then all of a sudden, I got caught up in the moment. I did it in the ass. And it was just so crazy because um, it was her first time too. That I was doing that to her. And you know, it was getting good, and then next thing you know it, I came right in her. Now here's where it's the worst part. The worst case scenario came true. That happens to most guys, but it's one of those things that when it happens, you say, "Oh, it would never happen to me." Well, guess what? It happened to me. So as soon as I came, right, I pulled out. Not even a few moments later, this giant shit log followed behind me and it hit the floor. And I remember running so hard. Mind you, I'm a big guy. I ran so hard to the other bathroom to take a shower, and I was pissed off. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell was I thinking? Talking her into that. Well, technically, I ain't talking her into nothing. I just did it. So, that was crazy. That was very crazy. It was the unthinkable. Other than the end result, I didn't mind. Now we go on to another embarrassing moment. Because trust me, there's nothing embarrassing than a doo-doo log that's bigger than your own dick. And literally, hers was so big it clogged toilets. It almost clogged up Big Brother's toilet one time. But after I got led on, was pretty much used and was with some Navy guy. She ended up getting with some Navy dude. Whatever. So as they say, the cure from a bad breakup is to find some new booty. I didn't think this new booty was going to take me to the hospital either. So I ended up going to Bluffton. And I ended up hitting on this Vietnamese girl who had like a bubble butt on her. I mean, she had a nice body. And I seen her a couple of times at Big Brother's restaurant. Crazy, isn't it? Crazy how things come together. So we had drinks, and I'm starting to notice all these moments happen after having a drink. Went to her apartment. First thing that came to mind about her apartment, it felt like I was back working at the strip club, because that's what it smelled like. Like that strip club perfume and cigarette smoke and all that. So we're making out on her couch that had like a nice cheetah print spread on it. And that's another thing too. What is with Asian women that love cheetah print? I mean, don't get me wrong. Covers and pillows, that's too much. But if you're wearing a cheetah print thong, I'm all for that, because I lose my mind when women wear that. You know, that's just how it is. So we ended up, making out and junk. As soon as I pulled my pants down to put it in, she gave me this look like, wrong hole, fool. Come to find out, it wasn't the wrong hole, she was just that tight. Like, you never thought something like that would be that tight. So, we ended up, it was about 15, 20 minutes of doing it. Then, as I felt that she was about to come, for most guys, it's like the biggest accomplishment, because you feel those, that it gets tighter as soon as they come more. You can feel the, contractions and whatnot. Mine didn't happen that way. No, not with this woman. Instead, it felt like a damn boa constrictor wrapped around my damn dick and pulled on it. And because of that, when I pulled out, it was just pretty much dangling. I mean, it was still at the erect size, but it was dangling. And it was hurting. So, embarrassed, I ended up going to the hospital. She wanted to go. I was like, no, this is not your scene. No, just stay where you're at. So then, because of that, I ended up going to the Naval Hospital. At the time, my dad was working security. So I was paranoid that he was working, but he wasn't. On top of that, the doctor looked like Will Ferrell with glasses. So that didn't help. I couldn't look at him with a straight face. So he ended up, giving me prescription for a cream and some muscle relaxers, and that was pretty much about it. Lesson learned. Lesson learned. When you mess around with your coworkers, you gotta know what's going on. Now, mind you, it wasn't like that when I worked at the school job, but when I worked at TJ Maxx, I pretty much had my share of coworkers. I remember this one who was she was pretty much an Asian nerd like me. She was pretty thick. She was taller than me, but she gave a pretty decent blowjob. It wasn't the best, but it was pretty decent. There was another female. We messed around for a bit. She let me finger in my car, and then I didn't have a condom, so we couldn't do anything. So I was bummed out about that. And then I ain't feel like paying for no 3-pack when I only need to use one. So for those people that work at the gas stations, they need to consider just doing singles. Charge like $1.50 for a single. I mean, the only people that do it are the Indian gas stations. So, whatever. It is what it is. It was alright. But, I think what stuck out the most with me was my ex, the Japanese ex. And mind you, some of these stories might seem limited because, like I said, some people who I had sexual occurrences with, I personally contacted and let them know, hey, I'm doing this podcast. I'm mentioning about all these moments, but out of respect to you, out of pure respect, because you're one of the few people I get along with female wise, I I didn't want to mention who they were. But as for this woman, oh, I'm mentioning everything. I'm mentioning it all. I'm talking about everything. Everything. I'm throwing your dirty laundry out. So, so it starts. Um, I've known who she was maybe a couple years before we had what we had going started. So then, what made it so interesting was when we first started hanging out. It was like pretty much we have drinks, then we talk, then we go home. It wasn't even the second week. We had drinks, we went out, we made out at the Sands. And then we made out behind the building of where she worked at, which I'll get to that later. So, pretty much I was helping her at her job because she was the sole owner of the Asian grocery store that used to be run by Big Brother. She took it over. So it was crazy because I don't know, it was just crazy. It was one of those things that you could pretty much predict the future, but you would never think it would happen. So there was one day I ended up we ended up hanging out after I got out of class. Started making out, kissing, and that was when I made the first move. And I thought because I made the first move, I thought she was gonna stop talking to me, because I literally, while making out with her, stuck my hands right down the front of her jeans that she had on, moved that thong to the side, and I kid you not, she was wet as a puddle, and it was so wet it wasn't even funny. It was that good. And then afterwards I was like, okay, because this happened, we ain't gonna end up talking no more. I can see it happening. So the opposite happened. Had Valentine's Day, went out to dinner, made out, kissed a lot, and so on. But then it was a week later. I'll never forget it. It was on a Friday. I think it was like the third week of February. I took off work early just to have lunch with her. And we were constantly making out at her job. In between customers, we were making out. And I was trying my best to get some. But she didn't want to do it at the store because she was afraid. But I still kept trying. The next night, we went to hang out. We had drinks. Now, most spots in Beaufort have like the Sands, or they would have places like Pigeon Point, but you had to be there at certain hours because of the police. But I had a special little spot that nobody knew about. She's the only female that I took to that spot. Whereas any other person, it was a guy. Just to hang out and drink and get drunk and act a fool. But she was the only female. So that night we started making out. Once again, I'm using the magic fingers on her. Just as wet, just as tight. And it was just so crazy. So crazy. And as I'm like making her come just from my fingers, she's like, whispering in my ear, "Do you have condom?" Yes, I do. Strapped it on. She wanted to hop onto the driver's seat where I was sitting at and wanted to ride and junk. And I'm like, whoa. We looked like it looked like an Asian black pretzel on the front seat. And mind you, for those who know me, know what I drive. It's impossible for something like that to happen. But we tried it because we were so caught up in the moment. So you know how that is. So then, worst case scenario, I end up taking down all the back seats. And mind you, I'm just in my underwear. And I like slide over the front seat into the back. And that's when, she got on top and was doing her thing. And I mean, she was going. It was at the point I felt like a female to where I just might as well just been like, because I felt like a little punk. So, I mean, she was doing everything, giving me head. We were doing 69. And then, she laid on her back. I started eating her out, and she was like going crazy. She was like, "Oh, baby." And she like came on my seats. It was like Mika all over again with my Grand Marquise. For those who don't know, Mika was a Japanese woman I worked with at TJ Maxx who squirted all over the dashboard of my car one night in Zaxby's parking lot after she got fingered by me. So it was almost like a flashback of that. And then a week later we got in a relationship. Go figure. Usually after a sexual occurrence like that, the female wouldn't walk right for a week. I couldn't walk right for a week because I was constantly sore. Because mind you, my back and legs are laying on that hard ass seat. Because mind you, the seats are down, so you're laying on the back part of the seat. So yeah, I was hurting. But I digress. It was worth it. So there was so many moments where we would constantly meet up just to fuck every time. But there was one time she came over to where I was at, and I was eating her out, and then she gave me a blowjob, and the way she was doing it, it was like so good. I was like, oh shit. And then in the middle of it, she was like, yeah, oh shit. Which was a funny moment. Another funny moment that I had with her was one night me and her were drinking with her best friend at her apartment. And, it was like going on for like an hour. So then afterwards, her friend was leaving and she joked saying, "Have fun with your boyfriend." And she was like laughing and giggling because she didn't know at the time we were in a relationship, because she didn't trust her friend because she thought her friend was messing around with her now ex-husband. Go figure. So after she left and closed the door, she came back in the kitchen where I was at. So we started kissing and making out, and then she literally hopped on me and wrapped her legs around me. So I'm carrying her to the bedroom, and we're making out, kissing, and as soon as we were about to get ready, we noticed her youngest kid was laying on the bed. So she ended up making a little bed. Sorry, I accidentally hit my mic, but she ended up making a little bed for him to lay on the floor. So we're pretty much on the bed, eating her pussy out. She's giving me a blowjob. Next thing you know, we're doing 69, right? And it was getting real good. And it's that moment where it got so good, you have that random occurrence that happens, and it scares the shit out of you. Out of nowhere, I see a shadow raising up, moving. A little kid got up and went to go pee in the bathroom, and he didn't notice what was going on. But she raised up, her butt ended up suffocating my face. And she's like telling me to be quiet, but how can I when I can't even breathe because your butt that grew like 10 pounds is like smothering my face. So he ended up going back to sleep, and she ended up finishing me off. And I mean, that was a good moment, because it was pretty much the quickest I ever came, because I noticed the older that I'm getting, the longer that it's taking me to finish. Shouldn't it be the older I'm getting, the faster it takes me? I don't know. In this generation, 28 is considered old. Like, you're about to be a dad old. But I mean, it was just so many moments where any free moment we had, you know, it was just one of those things I never got tired of. Having my lips wrapped around, well, her lips. And I ain't talking about the one on her face either. It was just like any moment I could get, foreplay anytime. We had a free moment. that was the first thing I went after. I mean, there was moments where it was in my car. There was a moment in her car. There was a moment in her kitchen. There was a moment in her bed. There was a moment in my bed. There was a moment in the parking lot of Big Lots in Bluffton. Because we went to Big Lots and we went to World Market. And because I was like so much in the mood, she ended up giving me a quick blowjob, but I didn't, it was like a quick 2-minute blowjob. And then we ended up going back to the apartment for like a good 3 hours and had sex. I think there was one time we went from like 3 until 8 at night, literally. Imagine that. But it is what it is. It's called memories for a reason. And it's those moments where you can't help but think to yourself, I miss a woman's touch. I miss a woman's taste. I miss stuff like that. Those parts of the relationships I miss. Which is kind of, most people would say, well, that's kind of creepy. No, you don't understand. It's that good. It was that good. I mean, there was one time she had a coffee with an espresso, and I went down on her, and I was the one that got hyper from it. I mean, people gonna say some shit like that and actually mean it. I was one of them. But yep, they're called an X for a reason. And since then, it haven't pretty much been the same. But I will say this. There's one person, and she's pretty much at the top of the list of fantasies and reenactments. And if I could, like, if we were in the same area, I'd wish to do it all over again and again and again and again and again times 12. Shit. This female I knew because of group dinners a few times, and I already had like a connection with her. She was so cool, but there was just something about her that was also very sexy and appealing to me, because I've never been with I've been with an Asian MILF, but I've never been with a Latina MILF, and this was the first. So she ended up being single a couple months later. It was like the fall of 2014, I think. And we would like talk and fool around on Messenger and stuff like that. But I'll never forget when she sent me a video of her playing with a vibrator. And to this day, I still got that video. Even though I lied saying I deleted it, no, I still got it. For obvious reasons. Sorry, don't get mad at me. But I remember we had a conversation because I told her of a dream I had that caught me off guard. And it was a dream where I showed up at a building, and it was kind of like a private building, and we were in there, and she gave me like a blow job that blew my mind. So I told her about it, and she's all like, it can happen anytime. I was like, yeah, right, stop playing. And just in case you call bullshit on this comment, I looked in the archives of our conversations on Facebook. Yeah, I went that far back just to be word for word. So it was about Thanksgiving break. I sent her a message because we were out for a week at the school, and I told her that I was thinking about looking into a tour of a building. And she's like, what type of tour? I was like, you know which one. So she told me what time to meet up, and I was getting ready. I even had a condom that I put in my pocket because I was like, I want to get up in that so bad. So I ended up driving up to her location because she was in another town. But I was going 65 in the 55 zone because, mind you, when the sex drive is in overdrive, your car will be in overdrive too. So because of it, I ended up getting pulled over. I got pulled over by a police officer. So I'm lying my ass off saying it was a family situation that I had to deal with, and I was just emotional about it. I'm lying my ass off, let's just face it. So he gave me a very cheap speeding ticket and no points. Like he pretty much said, $74, just pay it early. Otherwise I was going to end up paying $198. So I made sure that the next few days I was going to pay that $75. So anywho, I called her letting her know I was getting close. And I followed her car to this building. And when we got there, talked for a little bit. It was like kind of obvious it was poking at my pants. I mean, literally all I showed up in was basketball shorts, a t-shirt, socks, and sandals. Because mind you, fall weather in South Carolina is not really that cold. It's actually pretty warm still. So I talked for her a little bit. I noticed that she looked kind of tired, and I was like, why do you look so tired? And she was like, first off, you never want to tell a woman how tired she looks. I was like, I'm sorry, I was just sparking up conversation. She told me we weren't there to talk. So we were making out, kissing, and that was the thing. She knew how to kiss. I mean, she got nice lips too, in terms of kissing. So we ended up kissing. I'm rubbing on her booty. I was trying to go for the front, but she kind of like pulled my hand back. And I'm like, come on, why you doing me like that? You know what I was trying to go after. It's my party, baby. So I ended up pulling my shorts down. She ended up pulling my underwear down. And she was pretty much going to town with it. And I tell you, it was that good. It was like the best. Nobody is even close to how good she was. Like literally, when I say it was that good, it was that good. I mean, I still can remember it visually, how she was. And I mean, it was at one point she was like pulling her tits out and rubbing them, sucking, still all that. And here's one thing I learned. I learned that as soon as you're about to come, and you tell a woman that you're about to come, they start like slacking to where it kind of like delays the chances of coming. That's when you should like go faster just to get out of the way. And in her case, her arm was like getting tired because I noticed she was switching arms. Like both her arms were getting tired from it. And for the record, I'm sorry. I mean, I apologize every time it's mentioned. I didn't mean for all that to happen, but I told you it takes me longer than others to finish. So when I finally did, you want to talk about coming so hard? I never ever came the way I did that day. And it was something she did at the end, some type of technique. Because then I wasn't going to say shit. I wasn't going to say, oh, I'm about to come. I got quiet. And it was some trick she was doing, and I don't know what it was. But it caused it to like, I don't know. It looked like a lot came out. And I mean, it was at the point, I think she swallowed it too, if I remember. Like, she still was like still sucking on it some more. It was that, I don't know. But I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I felt so drained. And that was the funny part. I had to take my socks off. I had to take my sandals off because the floor was wooden. Wasn't carpet. So because of that, my feet were like claws of a hawk. They were locked on the floor because I was afraid of my legs locking and falling. But I was holding on because it was that good. So, I mean, because of that, I felt so empty and my stomach felt so sick because I was so hungry. And mind you, I had breakfast before I went there. So it was crazy. So then I ended up going to like the Chinese buffet, and I ended up eating like 5-6 plates, which that was like unheard of for me. I mean, that's just crazy for me to do that. But it was just crazy. But it was so good. Like literally, if I could have something like that happen again with her anytime. I mean, it was at the point, shit, you could have said I was almost in love. I mean, she already won me over with her personality and her humor. But that was like the name dropper. I was like, oh my god. It was that good. Like literally. And she had nice tits too. They were nice. So it was just crazy. She's got a nice body. It's, oh, that's can't know. Man, just thinking about it, my goodness, it's crazy. But anywho, it's funny because we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago because I was telling her about the people at the customers at my job, the big and tall store, how they were fat and, they had these cute women, but they were like skinny. And she was telling me how, big men are great lovers even though they're bad at sex. And she mentioned how she was with a guy who pretty much was packing very, very little. So when that happened, the first thing I asked her, I said, when she was explaining everything, I said, you know what I'm planning on asking you, right? And she's like, what? I said, so was mine good? And she was like, yes, end of story. That's all I need to know. Because if you're out there listening, you was great to me. So I just think it's crazy mentioning that is, the fact that I'm actually open about this on this podcast episode. This is probably the most intense, perverted, humorous, almost going on an hour type segment ever. But what do you expect? It's my fucking podcast. I can do that. I can do those type of things. I can say what I want. If I want to say 100 reasons why ramen noodles taste good, I'll do it. But mind you, I'm not gonna actually do it. But you get where I'm going. And like I said, I was throwing a lot of dirty laundry, but I was nice enough for some people I respected to get their permissions. I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, let's face it, you do got the honorable mentions. Like a certain female I knew in high school. We didn't have physical sex, but we had a lot of phone sex when she was living in another state and her husband was overseas in another country. Now, mind you, compared to what she was doing to everybody else, I was pretty much like the back burner. Because all I had was phone sex. Because she had like the silver bullet and she'd want to go like 3-4 rounds. I'm like, no. If I go again, my dick's going to fall off. So I just thought that was interesting. And then another honorable mention is a certain coworker that who I knew in high school that I hated, but yet we clicked as coworkers. And then you have that random occurrence of car sex in the summer, and I had the Grand Marquis. So you figure you're in the Grand Marquis with the windows down in 90 plus degree weather heat. It's not all that pleasant. And I was late for my exams too. That's crazy. So crazy. But at the same time, there's certain females that I always wanted to get with, just out of sheer curiosity. One being my ex's coworker. Hell, you figure you accuse me of cheating on you for, I might as well just do the deed. But she's too cool, too nice. I used to have a thing for her way back in the day because, I don't know. But if she gave me the time of day, she'd know off the bat, I've missed out for so many years. You damn right. That's your fault, not mine. And there's a couple others that I would look at them more than just sex. I would actually look at them as a relationship, and to a point, maybe marriage. But in my case, that's never gonna happen. There's a reason why my homeboy J-Rod calls me the never married open weight champion. I ain't never getting married, and I don't plan on it. All those moments I was that close, and then shit happens. Never again. Never again. That shit's for the birds, and I don't plan on chirping. But it's interesting of this episode how everything fell through into full circle. The fact that I threw my dirty laundry out on people, but I didn't mention their names. So for the record, y'all can't get mad at me because A, I didn't mention your name, and B, I didn't show any photos, which some of y'all I still got photos of. So mess with me and I'll be quick to post that shit all over social media. All I gotta do is censor out your face. Other than that, can't nobody prove it unless you physically show everything, which I doubt y'all would do that. But anywho, Episode 4 to be dropped at the end of the week, most likely Saturday. The I'm a Little Drink Hour segments will be going on with my boy J Rod once I figure out how to do software where I can do MP3 off of a phone to be recorded. But that's another work in progress. So, I'm glad most of you guys were able to enjoy the Mike Cook Guys podcast, season 2, episode 3, the Sukebe episode. And unfortunately, unlike most of you listeners, I got a job to go to in the morning. So, I am glad that you guys were able to experience that side of me that you probably didn't experience before. I commend you for that. Especially if you're able to keep a straight face and look at me with the same views that you do before listening to this podcast. So that's cool with me. But if you don't like it, I'm not losing sleep over it. Why? Because it's my party, baby. Until then, this is Mike Cook signing off for the Mike Cook Guys podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes. Now that I got the proper software to do it on.